This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 909 for mid-July 2022.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hey and welcome, it is Chris, it is Tips from the Top Floor time, episode 909 with the following topics. I'm a generator, relearning skills, semantic segmentation, and a cover of a women's magazine. So let's get right into that. First topic, I'm a generator. I have access to DALL-E 2. Yes, beta access to the currently most well-known famous image generator, and I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about. It is daunting, and it is amazing, and it is scary, and it is everything at the same time. So, yeah, I finally got access to the beta. I didn't have any special access in any way. I just got my name on the waiting list early enough, and now I'm one of the beta testers. They give you, as a beta tester, 50 generations a day. Yeah, they have redefined the term generations as in generating pictures. So yeah, 50 a day, which sounds a lot, but it's a very iterative process. You put a prompt in, you get something back. It is, let's say, not necessarily exactly what you want. Every time it spits out 6 suggestions, and then you can go from there and get variations on one or redo it, change the prompt, because it is a skill that needs to be learned. I said this before. You have to relearn a few things, and that is one of them, the whole prompt building. It's a very different approach that you would have from photography. Of course, depends on how your brain is structured. Mine is structured in a more visual sense. So I'm when I do photography, I let myself be inspired by the surroundings, by what's there, and that ends up being different when you have a blank sheet of paper in front of you, so to speak, and have to put in a prompt to generate something. But I'm getting there. It's a learning process, and those 50 generations a day is like, okay, gotta wait again. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm using them up. I'm practicing, and it is building new neural pathways in my brain. And it's good because it's a learning experience, it's a skill building experience, and I'm making progress. I found out that doing weird things is cool. Doing things, getting the exact result you want out of it is difficult or impossible, because the same prompt will never yield the same exact thing. So you have to be very descriptive, but you can't be too over descriptive, because there's a parser that parses your input prompt, and if the parser runs into problems and doesn't get it, then the picture that comes out is not what you want. I tried one where I wanted Kermit the Frog to wear an armor, like an old knight's armor, shiny metal armor, and the prompt Kermit with an armor didn't work, because it rendered Kermit next to an armor, because Kermit was with an armor. So I had to be very specific, putting on wearing an armor and so on. And that's the kind of stuff you run into. So you learn to, let's say, sharpen your words a bit. Faces are kind of weird sometimes, like photorealistic faces. Paintings are always great, but making photos with it, or photorealistic imagery, it's probably the better term, because they are not photos. But doing that is sometimes they just look a bit weird. But yeah, I'll talk about face fixers another time, because there is something like face fixers. So yeah, relearning skills. I'm reprogramming my brain, and I thought it would be easier, because I do pre-visualize photos in front of my inner eye. So that's the real question. How does my brain work? Or how you can do this as an exercise right now. Close your eyes, imagine something, and then let me know. Do you see what you imagine? As in, do you have a visual representation, or is it more of an abstract thing? And what I found out in researching all this is some people do see things, as in they pre-visualize, like literally visualize things, and some don't. I'm somewhere in between. I can clearly visualize something, but it's in a very abstract form. And then when I go to shoot what I imagined, as in to take photos of that, what I pre-visualized, then it will always be different. Because again, the way my photography works is that I usually begin with what I pre-visualize, but then I let the location inspire me, the surroundings, the participants in the photo, the stuff that's there, the stuff, what can I use, what can I incorporate, what's the light like, and so on. What should I leave out, and so on. So, yeah, you have to be precise sometimes. Like it's writing a story. Who are the characters? What is the setting? What's the location? What is in the background? What is the light like? What's the composition like? The colors. You can even go as far as specifying a lens, and it will, from its training set, it will approximate pictures that have been taken with lenses that way, that focal length. Are there any filters on it? What's the style you want? I mean, is it Andrei Tarkovsky, like a movie still from an Andrei Tarkovsky movie, or is it Ansel Adams? You can specify in a prompt. You could specify such and such by Ansel Adams, and it will emulate that style. So again, it's an iterative approach. You generate, you make variations, you upload, you generate, and so on. So I'm working on reshaping my brain. And it's fun. It's the fun experience. Yeah. By the way, I'm doing the same with GPT-3 with the OpenAI language model, which which writes for you or with you or against you. Again, similar experience. Those new AI-based, machine learning-based systems are fun to play with. And the question is, how many jobs are they gonna eat up? We'll talk about this a bit later. Here's one thing that I find really interesting in terms of the technology behind it, because there are, this is about semantic segmentation. This will get a bit nerdy, but bear with me. There are systems out there and algorithms that are trying to assign a label to every single pixel in this world. And they, to a certain extent, are already able to distinguish between things. And semantic segmentation means you look at the picture, you and we look at the picture, and it's super easy for us to say, okay, this is a sheet of paper, this is a fan, this is, I don't know, a business card, this is a battery, and these things are on top of my desk. There's also a black keyboard on top of my desk, and a little AirPods case, a white AirPods case. So distinguishing these things, object recognition is already a thing, right? That is being done by your Photos app in your iPhone. And I'm pretty sure Android does a very similar thing, because you can go in there into your Photos app and type building, cat, mouse, and it will bring back pictures that have these things in it. So there is object recognition built into the system. And I don't know, but there's probably several tens of thousands of things that your iPhone is able to recognize. In iOS 16 coming up, it will recognize things in a live context. So that is already happening. But what else is that semantic segmentation for? Well, it is, let's say, here are a few applications. VR, AR. Again, I've kept saying for years, we are gonna be wearing goggles of some sort, or some shape or another. Not too far in the future. I'd say maximum a couple of years. There's so much investment going on in this. So we'll see these things. There will be less bulky and so on. But anyway, with AR, which is a digital layer on top of reality, we will need semantic segmentation to, I don't know, to see the objects and attach virtual things to them, like a virtual button that's attached to a light source, or attaching a virtual screen to a wall, or I don't know, label plants in your garden. There's like an abundance of use cases that you could think of. Another one is autonomy in driving, self-driving cars. They need to be able to tell what's a pedestrian, what's a bicycle, what's a street light, what's a trash can, and what's another car. Stuff like pothole detection, so they can drive around, or speed bump detection, so they can slow down. That's what their systems have to do. Semantic segmentation. Find out what that thing is. Is that thing in the street a plastic bag that I can safely drive over, or is it a big rock that, and so on. So there's that kind of recognition going on. And then of course that segmentation has to work with partial information. I mean, you have things overlapping each other. Let's say, example, you have a couple of dogs. They are both the same color and they overlap each other visually. But the camera sees a 2D picture. So the camera in its brain would ideally be able to still tell that is two poodles and not just one strangely shaped one that has 2 heads and 7 legs. So that is an added difficulty that the systems are getting better at. And of course, where this is relevant for us is your camera will have a huge advantage if it can tell sky from person, from face, from flowers, and so on. Because then it can treat them in a different way. And guess what? Your smartphone is already doing some of that. With the help of machine learning, there's neural networking chips in your smartphone that do these kind of things. It's not always perfect. I mean, if you look at portrait mode, which is the fake bokeh thing, that sometimes has some weird artifacts, but it's getting there. And of course, what that will enable is selective treatment of different areas of the picture. It's already happening. Make the sky look more like a sky. Fix the skin tone. Make the lawn nice and juicy green. So it's part of the game already. Semantic segmentation is part of the game. It'll be more part of the game wherever cameras are involved. And by the way, the big camera manufacturers do not like that a bit, because they are really good at making cameras, but they are still learning the software thing. And that takes entirely new skills. The whole field of machine learning is just taking off, and it requires new skills, new approaches, new hardware in the cameras, like special chips to do these kind of neural tasks, and new infrastructure for training the neural nets. The big players in that field spend billions and billions building special hardware for training these neural nets that they can then run on your much smaller devices. It's mind-boggling to see the investments there. And I said years ago that we're in the middle of a huge transition when it comes to photography. That's the reason I started the Future of Photography podcast, because I could smell it in the air that something was about to come. And I guarantee you, you haven't seen anything yet. So buckle up. Yeah. Next up, Cosmopolitan cover. Maybe you have seen the Cosmopolitan cover. Latest issue of Cosmopolitan is titled The AI Issue. And for me, it has a title. The title is made by DALL-E 2, OpenAI's DALL-E 2. And I think that means the whole thing has arrived in the mainstream, and it has stoked the fear of people that some jobs will go away, like the graphic designer, artist, cover artist, or that they will at least dramatically change. And in that context, I look back at a magazine cover that I remember vividly from March 1984, long time ago. National Geographic Volume 165, number 3. And the reason I'm looking back at that is because back then I was around 15, and I had a subscription to National Geographic, which for a German boy was not usual. We had an American friend who bought that for me for a year, and it exposed me to so many interesting things. I'm really thankful in a time when a lot of things are formed in one. So I had National Geographic, and on the cover they had a hologram of the American eagle. And that hologram back then, I mean, that's the same stuff that you will nowadays see on your credit card and that kind of stuff. But it was on a cover of a magazine, which blew me away. And I was expecting every magazine from then on have holograms and things, which hasn't happened. Holograms are much more, let's say, utilitarian these days. But so that was a bit of a gimmick, but in the end, I don't know if all the future, well, let's say in the future, magazine covers are more likely to be done using these systems for assistance. But the background story here is, I think, the real story, and that is this story of, let me open it here, of how this came to be, how this cover was made, and it was made by Karen X. Cheng. She is an artist, and she has a Twitter thread that I wholeheartedly agree with. So there's a video, and you get an idea of how this thing was made. And she writes, for something like this, there was a ton of human involvement and decision making. While each attempt takes only 20 seconds to generate, it took hundreds of attempts, hours of prompt generating and refining before getting the perfect image. So if you want something under an artistic direction and you want control, then the only way at this point to do it is to iterate, to retry, to change the prompt, to adapt. And that really is a process. I can say this from my own experience. It is a process. It takes a while to get to that point. She continues, I think the natural reaction is to fear that AI will replace human artists. Certainly that thought crossed my mind, but the more I use DALL-E 2, the less I see this as a replacement for humans, and the more I see it as a tool for humans to use, an instrument to play. And like any musical instrument, you get better with practice. I've had a fair amount of practice now. I've probably spent 100 and more hours playing with it at this point and knowing what words to use to communicate. That's a community effort. I'm 1000% with Karen here, because it is like a new skill you have to learn. It's like learning an instrument. It really is. And it will shift you will have to shift your skill level to keep up with that, or you'll be left behind. And that's been the case for many new technologies and many new things. Just let's all look back to when digital photography came along. That required a shift in skills to use that new tool in a good way and to get out what you want. And shooting film was a very, very different kind of situation, even though in general it was very similar. So here we have another shift that's coming up. Real photography is not going to go away. There will still be a lot of stuff like documentary stuff. Hey, of course, you document things. So that's where photography is interesting. It will still be a lot more, let's say, quick and easy to get exactly what you want if you have a camera and a set and so on. But there will be a lot of photography out there that can be replaced with a prompt and, 3 tries and picking the right one and refining it a bit and giving it a minute in Photoshop to clean up a few rough edges. And then, that will happen. That will happen for absolutely sure. We are just seeing the beginning. The development will continue. and the stuff will become better. And last but not least, here's a little thing about workshops, because on photo tours, because the last 2 years have not been very nice in that respect. I've done 2 photo workshops in the last 2 years. 2. And those, I mean, admittedly, those were the big ones. The Abbey photo workshop we do in southern Germany this year with 30 people in total. So that was quite an event. But yeah, not a single photo tour for the obvious reasons. And that's a bit frustrating. So the other day I talked with Henry. He and I do the Curiously Polar podcast with Mario. Henry is an expedition leader in the Antarctic and in the Arctic. That's where I met him. He's German, but he now lives in Romania, in Eastern Europe. And the other day we talked, and I mentioned how nice it would be to do a photo tour of Romania. Romania, by the way, that is Transylvania. The central part of Romania is Transylvania with all the Dracula lore and stuff. And that's just a very beautiful part of the world with lots of castles and fortified churches and amazing landscapes and a very old and traditional culture. I mean, some people in the villages there still use horses as work animals. So we brainstormed the idea of a Transylvania photo tour, and it, it kind of blew up into something a tiny little bit bigger. So yeah, bear with me. One aspect of this, of a tour like that would be, for me, because I find it's very important, is to keep the environmental impact as low as possible. Now, I happen to drive an EV. I've done so for over a year, and it happens to be one that is pretty capable of road trips. So my idea was that I would drive down there. That's a 2-day drive, so nothing to sneeze at. But I would drive down to Transylvania and make that photo tour like a fairly compact group size, let's say 2 to 3 people, so we'd all fit in that one car. And as a small group, we'd be really flexible, and we'd be a pretty tight-knit group. A smaller group would also help keep the infection risk low, because that risk goes up exponentially with group size. So then, and this is where it kind of blew up, then I thought to myself, hey, if you drive down there from Germany, maybe you could offer some of the participants to fly into Germany, and you could all drive down there together, and that would be fun. And then I opened up the map and had a look at what's on the map on that way. And that's when the light went on. one of those face palm moments, because this shouldn't just be a Transylvania tour. This should actually be an Eastern Europe photo road trip, because here's what's on the way. Okay, let's go through that in our mental map. You can open a map and see. I suggest we start this in Berlin. Remember Berlin, lots of history, a very good starting point. Spend a day there, and then drive down to Dresden, which is an amazing historic city in Eastern Germany, and then. That would be overnight, of course, so we'd be in a hotel or whatever accommodation works. Next stop then would be Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic. Again, so much history. And next up would be Vienna in Austria. Again, history. I can only say history, culture. I love Vienna with its coffee houses and its famous backyards, and it's just the way it feels. I take any excuse to spend some time there. I would probably suggest to make Vienna like a 2-day stop, because, again, there's so much to see and to photograph. And then continue on to Bratislava in Slovakia, and then Budapest in Hungary. And then it's a couple more hops to Transylvania from there. There's like really cool stuff on the way. There's a national park on the way, and some more castles and stuff. So yeah, we'd then be in Transylvania, which is okay. Let me bring up Google here. which is known for, I'm quoting Google now, medieval towns, mountainous borders, and castles like Bran Castle, a Gothic fortress associated with the legend of Dracula. Which, by the way, is quite touristy, but it's beautiful to look at, and I think we should probably go there. The city, okay, continuing with Google, the city of Brazov. I'm not sure, Brasov, I'm not sure how to pronounce these things, features Saxon walls and bastions, as well as expansive council square ringed by colorful Baroque buildings, the towering Gothic black church and cafes. Yeah, fortified churches, that's one of the things that Transylvania is known for, and there's tons of them. And this architecture goes 800 and more years back, so it is mind-blowing. So yeah, that's pretty much a buffet of some of the best that Eastern Europe has to offer. I mean, culturally, historically, and of course, photographically. So yeah, this idea blew up a bit into, I'd say it's probably like a 10-day road trip photo workshop tour thing. Again, I don't really know how to call this, but the more I think about this, the more excited I get. And for photography, I mean, we'd of course spend time like just structuring the days. Again, preliminary planning here, but we'd of course spend time shooting in the mornings, and then during midday we'd do some driving, arrive at our next stop in the afternoon, go out to do some photography in the afternoon to evening, then check in at our accommodation, shoot some more next morning, and then do another midday drive. And those drives are all in the 2 to 3 hour range. So things are fairly close together over here. And then, of course, in Transylvania, Henry would be our guide for a couple of days. He lives there. He knows the secret tips, and he's a guy by trade. And then after exploring Transylvania for 2 days, he would fly back home from Romania. So that's the 10-day Eastern Europe photo road trip. Berlin, Dresden, Prague, Vienna, Bratislava, Budapest, Transylvania. Yeah, it just feels right. And by the way, if that wasn't enough, I will, of course, have to get back somehow. So I'll drive back the same way in reverse order. And I'm planning to open that up too. So if anyone is interested in the other direction, Transylvania, Budapest, Bratislava, Vienna, Prague, Dresden, with a grand finale in Berlin, that would be possible too. So again, 2 to 3 people per direction. Let me know what you think. How does that sound? Is that something that a few of you might be interested in? And again, that's just a rough outline. Needs a bit more planning. I might even do that trip on my own first to do some more scouting. I could vlog from that maybe a bit. Yeah, let me know what you think. Go to tfttf.com/hi. And yeah, tell me what you think. Yep, that was it for this episode. Thank you so much for being tuned in. My name is Chris Marquardt. If you want to find out more about me and this show, go to tipsfromthetopfloor.com, tfttf.com is the shortcut. And let me know what you think. Best way to contact me is on Twitter at Chris Marquardt, Chris MarQuardt. And of course, this show, Tips from the Top Floor, has a Twitter account. That's TFTTF Photo, TFTTF PHOTO. And I'm still not sure if all the podcast recorders, all the podcast players have woken up and found the re-emerging Tips from the Top Floor. If not, well, tell your friends, let everyone know that TFTTF is back. Also, still really interested in what your thoughts are on the slightly different mix of topics on this show. Is it cool? Is it not? You can send info. There are multiple ways to do that, and the best way to do it is go to tfttf.com/hi, tfttf.com/hi, and that gives you links to how to write feedback, how to record feedback, how to send in feedback. So tfttf.com/hi. By the way, 2 pieces of feedback that I've received. One from Nick Carter. He writes, I was delighted to see your latest TFTTF podcast pop into my podcatcher today. I've been listening since July 2005, so it's very nearly there at the beginning. I'm excited to hear your plans for the future and hope you find the time to continue with TFTTF. Just think, you used to do 3 shows a week. I've also listened to TFOP, TFOP, The Future of Photography, since it started, so I haven't forgotten you. And Don Flory wrote, Chris, good to have you back on TFTTF, longtime listener from Virginia. I hope you will find benefit in continuing the show. I know I sure do. Thank you, Don. Thank you very much for writing. Everyone, if you want to send in some feedback, again, go to tfttf.com/hi. That's tfttf.com/hi. And leave a note, leave a voicemail. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And that was it. Thanks for being around. This was episode 909. Until then, happy shooting.